Hi guys, and welcome back to my video. Today I'm coming to you with part 3 of my exchange year Q&A. As I mentioned in the 2 previous parts, I found this amazing website that just, gives you such a good roundabout of all the questions that you could possibly ask an exchange student. For any of you who are new to this channel, my name is Laura. I went on an exchange year in the US, in Texas to be precise, about 6 years ago, and I think those questions could really help you to get to know more about my experience and maybe help you out if you are a future exchange student. So I'm just gonna get right on into the video again. If you wanted to see parts 1 and 2, definitely go check those out. You will find those on my channel. The way this works is that the questions are actually grouped into categories, and today's first category is the category of travel. So I'm just gonna get right on into the questions. If I look down, it is because the questions are on my phone. Let's start. So travel, the first question is, how did you get around? Actually, I didn't do too much traveling. Usually, we would just like spend our weekends in town. And so we usually would just take the car. I went to Florida once, which was really, really cool. We went with a group of exchange students and my organization organized the trip. So we had a big car and they just packed us all in the car. There was probably like 8 or 9 of us in there. And we drove all the way from Texas to Florida, which was really fun. It was a road trip, and then obviously we had a week at Disney World, and then we drove back. So I would say the general mode of transportation in the US tends to be the car. I also went traveling to see a friend who was living in Virginia, and obviously that's very far away, so I took a plane. And I will say that flying internally in the United States is super easy. It's almost like taking a train, super easy, And so yeah, that's definitely a mode of transportation that's relatively cheap and easy when you are trying to cover really big distances. What was public transportation like? We didn't have public transportation. So I was in a small town in Texas. There was no public transportation. The only thing that we had was like the school bus would bring you like from school or to school, and that was it. Like we didn't have buses, we didn't have trains. I'm pretty sure in Dallas they have some form of public transportation, but that was like an hour away, so there was no way to get to Dallas if you didn't already have a car. So yeah, it was non-existent for me. Next question, what was your favorite travel experience? The one I just mentioned was my favorite, probably when I went to Disney World, Florida for a week with people I now call my friends. They're from all kinds of countries around the world, and we just formed such amazing bonds, and obviously Disney World is amazing. So there's actually a video about this trip that's still up on my channel from like 6 years ago, so if you want to see it kind of firsthand, then go check that out. The video is super cringe because we're all like super young and not able to speak English perfectly yet, and so we say some really cringy stuff, but it was a really good time. Next question, what was your favorite place you traveled to? So Florida was amazing, but I think if it's just about the place, I probably liked Virginia even better. It was just really nice to get to experience the United States East Coast as well. It's super different, I found, from the South. Also, there's like a lot of history there, obviously, because that's where the settlers came, and just like settled first. So a lot of old homes. I went to Jefferson's home as well, so there's a lot of history there, and it is a bit more European, so you can definitely see the European touches there still. So that was a really nice place to travel to. I really recommend that. The next question is, what is one touristy thing that you recommend doing? So for one of my best friend's birthdays, Hannah's birthday, we went to medieval times. So it's basically like you're going to a medieval castle, and they have like sword fights and all kinds of entertainment, and you sit there and you actually eat there with your hands like they did in the medieval times, and that was so fun. So that's definitely more of a touristy activity, but it was really cool. Moving on to the next category, and that is housing. So the first question is, what was your housing situation like? So my host family had a really amazing house actually. In Texas, there's a lot of space there, so we had a huge property. It was my host grandparents' house, and there was a woodland, and then there was my host family's house, and we just had so much space, like you can barely see the neighbor's house that was like that small in the distance. So we had a lot of land. It was a lovely home actually. It was really nice. I had my own room. It wasn't the biggest room, but it definitely fit my bed in my wardrobe and like had a chest of drawers, and it was definitely enough for me. I shared a bathroom with my host siblings, which wasn't a problem at all. Definitely a really good housing situation. I was really happy with it. What were the people like that you lived with? So my host family consisted of my host parents, who were, I'm not sure, between 40 and 50 at the time, and my host sister, who was 17, and my host brother, who was 14, 15. And I also had an older host brother, but he had already moved out because he was going to college at the time. And we also had a cat and a dog. Moving on to the next category, which is titled friends and family. So the first question is, how did you keep in touch with friends and family? What I did, because I didn't want to spend too much time talking with people from home, I really wanted to get to experience the United States and high school and everything. So I scheduled in times to talk to my family and friends. So every single Sunday I would take 1 hour to talk to my parents and my brother at home, or generally family members, and then I would usually also have another hour for one friend that I would talk to, you know, via Skype or Zoom or FaceTime or anything like that. So I had 2 hours where I actually had time scheduled in, and due to the time difference I wasn't able to talk to my friends all day anyway, so I tried to keep it to kind of a minimum because I didn't want to be, you know, stuck at home mentally. I just wanted to be where I was and live that life. Next question, how did it work for you to have a cell phone while abroad? It actually wasn't too complicated. I think we went to Walmart and got one of those insert SIM cards with an American contract. You know, my host dad helped, and it's always good when you have someone who, you know, knows kind of the language better than you do, because you're gonna have to, you know, make a phone call or like look over a contract or something like that. So just do that in the first couple of days, but it's not too complicated. Next question, do you stay in touch with people that you met there still? Generally, I would say yes. I'm obviously not in touch with them every single day, but my host parents and I are in touch a couple of times a year, you know, whenever there's a holiday or a birthday coming around, or just we find an old picture or something, we will text each other. I follow them all on Facebook, which is really helpful because Americans tend to post more on Facebook than Germans do. So I, you know, follow their life and pictures and everything. So I feel like I'm pretty updated. My best friend Hannah and I really keep in touch. Before, you know, the whole quarantine and the pandemic hit, we actually would travel once a year, which is really, really awesome. And yeah, we were really in touch. I also stay in touch with a lot of exchange students that I met, you know, during that year. So I would say I'm pretty happy. I also have a couple of other friends there that I keep in touch with. So overall, I would say, yeah, I'm still in touch with a bunch of people, which makes me really happy. The next question is, what were other people like that were in the same program as you? So the German people were all super, super lovely. We were a group of people coming from all of Germany due to the scholarship program, and I met so many amazing people. Like, there was nobody that was actually rude or anything. We all got along pretty well, and I'm still in touch with some of them even today, and I just had a really, really great time. Those were really lovely people. The other exchange students in the United States were probably some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life, and probably will ever meet in my life. We had the best, most inspiring conversations, and besides, you know, getting to know the United States and everything and the people there, that was probably the most valuable experience for me, is getting to know all these other cultures by being able to talk to people from other cultures. Like, when do you ever get the chance to talk to people from 10 different countries at the same time, at the same table? So yeah, that was definitely so valuable and so amazing. The next question is a funny one. It says, what was the most common thing that people asked you about in the United States? People ask you the craziest things. Like, I was asked whether we had trees. I was asked whether we had ketchup. I was asked whether there were black people in Germany. Just like random weird questions are being asked, especially from people like in high school. I also had somebody telling me I wasn't white, which is kind of weird considering that I'm kind of the lightest person on the planet. And yeah, there was also like obviously some bad encounters where people like were describing me as a Nazi just because I was from Germany and stuff like that. So just random questions are usually what is being asked a lot. The next category of question is concerned with finance and budgeting. So the first question is, how did you budget for your time abroad? So as I already mentioned, I was lucky enough to get a scholarship, so the bulk, you know, 10,000 euros or dollars was covered by my scholarship program, which was amazing. And so the rest of the money, it really wasn't that much anymore. It was just, you know, for my kind of like clothing and, you know, activities that I wanted to do on the weekends and, you know, the 2 trips that I took, but, you know, all the food was taken care of by my host family, and I really didn't have to spend that much more. So maybe I spent like $200 a month or something, just because, you know, I was going out and doing a lot of activities because everything was new. I obviously had to buy a lot more, you know, things because I wasn't able to fit everything in my suitcase, but overall I think we definitely didn't spend that much money, which is also connected to the next question. It is, did you spend more or less than you thought? Originally I wasn't sure I was going to get the scholarship, so we, you know, budgeted in a lot more money than we ended up spending, just because the majority was taken care of by the scholarship program. So my answer is definitely I spent less, but that depends on your expectations and also your day-to-day life. If you're a crazy social butterfly and you're friends with anyone, you're going to get invited to every single party there is, you're going to be out not just every weekend, but, you know, every single day, and you're obviously going to spend more money. But I would say due to the scholarship, we definitely spent less than we expected to spend. Were there any expenses that you weren't expecting? I didn't expect to travel or to take those big trips actually, but I'm really glad I did. So those were expenses that I did not end up expecting. Also, the whole like workout gear. I wasn't expecting to work out 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, so I definitely had to get a lot more workout gear, and my workout shoes actually fell apart after a couple of weeks, so I had to get a whole new set of trainers, which was kind of expensive. And also, like, I ended up playing tennis, so I had to get like a tennis racket and stuff like that. So the small things do add up, but it wasn't anything crazy. The last category I want to cover today is the one of personal growth. The first question on here is, what was the hardest thing that you had to adjust to once you got to the United States? I would say the first thing was definitely starting out, you know, without anyone there. I had always been the kind of kid who had just always, you know, a bunch of friends around. Like, I was never a loner. Ever since I could think, there were friends. Like in kindergarten, I had a bunch of friends. In school, I had a bunch of friends, and suddenly you're just all alone and you kind of have to start from scratch. And when you're 15, it's not as easy as in kindergarten, where, you know, just 2 kids play with the same toy and suddenly they're like best friends. You know, you have to really put a lot of effort into it, and I wasn't used to being the new kid. I wasn't used to not having any friends around, and that was definitely hard to adjust to. Another thing I would say was really hard was adjusting to a whole new set of cultural rules, because when you're going from Germany to the US, you know it's a different culture and a different country, but you almost expect it to be kind of the same, because it's both, like, you know, Western countries. You see America in movies and stuff like that, so you kind of feel like you already know it, but then you get there and you figure out you really don't know it at all. So figuring out what the societal rules were and then actually applying them was really hard at first. The next question is, did you have any embarrassing moments abroad? Loads of them. And the last question, I mentioned that there were a lot of cultural and societal differences and rules that I didn't know about. And what I found that in the South, because people are so nice to you all the time, they don't want to necessarily embarrass you or tell you when you did something that wasn't quite right culturally. So a lot of the time I repeated the same cultural mistakes because nobody would tell me about it. And so yeah, a lot of embarrassing things. Dress code stuff as well. I remember the most embarrassing thing was probably when I went to athletics for the first time. So to work out and physical education, but for us it was athletics. And I was wearing a neon yellow workout shirt, and we were only allowed to wear our school colors, which were white, gray, and black. So like 60 girls were in white, gray, and black, and I was wearing neon yellow, and that was pretty embarrassing because obviously everybody could see where I was at all times. Plus they did stuff that I was not used to doing, so I was like really bad and sticking out like a sore thumb. So that was pretty embarrassing. I'd say that was probably the most embarrassing thing I did. What was the most interesting thing about the culture in the South, and especially in this small town in the South? I definitely learned that the word appropriate is used a lot. So whether it comes to clothing, sexual behavior, things you talk about, your language, appropriate is a word you will hear so much. I was just raised very differently. Especially when it comes to like sexuality, you know, practicing it or talking about it, we are just, I would say Germans are raised more liberally, generally speaking. We have a lot more sexual education in school. It's not really something you never talk about. I talk about this openly with my parents, and I know that a lot of people do, and so that was definitely super different. That's something I definitely learned about the culture, that there are a lot of things that are just not to be discussed openly or not to be practiced ever. So yeah, that's something I definitely definitely learned. Next question, what did you learn about your own culture? You definitely learn to appreciate where you come from in your own culture, because you're really going to miss it. But I also learned that our education system is really good, and that Germans tend to travel just so much more than other people do. I learned that my country was really small and that Europe is really small compared to other, you know, places, and that's why we get to travel a lot more, and that we're a lot more keen on learning languages because our place is so small and we're so close together. I learned to view my own country's history from a different perspective, which was really interesting. And I definitely noticed the difference in national pride. Obviously Germans do not have much national pride due to our history, and the US definitely have a lot of national pride, which is beautiful in a lot of aspects. And so I definitely I saw that it was possible to be very proud of your nation, which I wasn't, you know, used to. Next question, how did you deal with homesickness? I don't know that there are really ways that you can deal with it. I think oftentimes you just have to go through it and get through it. I would try to, you know, talk to my parents, but then not spend too much time talking to them, and I was just kind of trying to get my mind off it. So maybe watch a movie, maybe go out with some friends if you already have made friends, or just keep busy, just keep moving, and you'll get through it. There will be times, there will always be ups and downs, but you know, just wait it out, you'll be fine. So those were all of the questions that I will be dealing with today, seeing as this video has already turned out so long again, but since it is the third part, I really wanted to get all of these questions done today for you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, even though it was long. If you did, please make sure to hit the notification bell and the subscribe button so you never miss out on any of my future content either. Thank you so much, guys, for taking your time out of your day and to support my channel. And as always, as I mentioned in the other videos, if you have any random questions concerning my life, me as a person, or my exchange year, please leave them down in the comments below. I would love to make a personal Q&A video just for my subscribers. So if you have any random questions, it can literally be anything, just put it down in the comments below and I will make sure to answer them very soon. As always, thank you so much. I love you. Bye.